Hello. You may not know this, but over 2.2 million people are currently incarcerated in jails and prisons across America. In recent years, social media has exploded with controversial videos exposing the realities of police brutality. As the data is released, it is becoming more apparent that our prison system is broken. It is not an isolated incident where a friend of a friend you know went to jail overnight for a DUI. This is becoming an epidemic felt mostly by minorities in America. Did you know that 13% of the population in America is black and 56% of them are in jail for non-violent crimes? According to Newsweek journalist Joshua Lott, there are 2.7 million children in America who have at least one parent in jail. But it is not only black Americans that have reason to fear interaction with the judicial system. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to be pulled over by the police if you were deaf or hard of hearing. How would you communicate with them? How would you follow instructions that you do not understand? How quickly do you think that this scenario could spin out of control? This is not just a hypothetical situation. 2 weeks ago in North Carolina, a deaf man named Daniel Harris was shot in front of his house for failing to stop for a traffic violation. Witnesses say that it seemed like the victim was trying to communicate with the officer using his hands. Once arrested and brought into custody, you are not afforded many luxuries. Perhaps a phone call, maybe to call your lawyer. But what happens if you are deaf? What if you're not allowed a phone call because they do not have a video phone set up at the prison? What do you do if there is no way that you can explain to friends or family where you are or what happened to you? What do you do when you are interrogated and their only form of communication is writing back and forth, but English is not your first language, and the syntax structure makes the officers mistake your statement as a confession because it is not in your native tongue? You may think that this is rare, but the Deaf Prisoners' Rights Organization, HEARD, reports that people with disabilities represent 20% of the general population and 60 to 80% of our prison population. Right now, kids with disabilities are entering juvenile facilities at a rate 5 times higher than youth without disability. Once a deaf person is imprisoned, the injustices become innumerable. Deaf people are often not given access to an interpreter during their arrest or for their interrogation and court proceedings. Even sadder, many states do not require the interpreter to be certified, which only serves to further oppress the incarcerated deaf person. It is almost impossible for hard-of-hearing people to receive batteries for their hearing aids, or to receive hearing aids at all. Deaf people also spend longer sentences in jail than their counterparts because they cannot participate or complete the early release program set up by the parole board because of language deficiency. They often miss out on breakfast, yard, or visitations because they did not hear their name being called. They are also targets for abuse from guards who think that they're not obeying a command, or inmates who see them as easy prey. The isolation of having no one to talk to can lead to extreme depression and higher rates of suicide. Deaf and hard-of-hearing people in prison are more at risk to sexual assault and physical abuse. In light of these injustices, I think it is safe to say that reform is in order. There are some simple accommodations that can make a world of difference in how deaf and hard-of-hearing people are treated by the police and the prison system. The police force could begin these changes by screening inmates upon entry so that they can receive proper provisions for the disabled. They can instate police and guard training on how to interact with people who are deaf or hard of hearing. They could install technologies such as video phones and amplified phones, which are actually given away free through the government because of the ADA Rehabilitation Act of 1974, which requires places and facilities that receive federal funding to accommodate. They can ensure that their interpreters are qualified and that they have interpreters on staff. They can move deaf prisoners to the same facilities, which would lessen the risk of isolation and depression. These are just a few suggestions that would make a huge difference for inmates who are deaf and hard of hearing. Regardless of your political beliefs, the injustices inflicted upon the deaf and hard of hearing in our legal system is outrageous and needs to be addressed. We cannot just sweep these injustices aside. Proverbs 31:18 says, "Speak up for those who have no voice, for the justice of all who are dispossessed." And that is what we need to be doing today.